Okay, food, my favourite subject. What's the longest you've gone without food?
An hour.
Hour? Like I say, if I miss my breakfast, I'll go get it, Okay, we say 3 weeks without food. Without water, your appetite suffers anyway. And people do this with no ill effects whatsoever. But the record was 56 days. One of our lads got jailed in Leeds jail and he went on hunger strike. Now there's lots of cases where they put drips into that, so I don't think that counts. They can survive indefinitely. But he'd done a straight 60 odd days, I believe, which was a record. But again, I don't say practice this, you know what I mean? Go with that if you have to, but always promise yourself you've got enough food on you, you've got enough knowledge to take from nature, never be hungry, okay? Okay, the nutritional chain, what we teach is plants, fungi, insects, fish and game. So right at the bottom with plants, we don't have to wrestle them, cut them, bleed them, skin them. It's just a matter of identification, gathering them and then preparing them. Now fortunately there is an edibility test, but it's got a downside. Imagine if you're starving hungry, you could go out there and eat 20 pound of grass, 100 weight of grass if you want. But unfortunately we cannot break down the cellulose in the grass, which the herbivores do. They've got different digestive system and they get nourishment from it. Now we cannot do that. So if I was foolish enough to eat grass, I'd have a dump, and there'd be a big dump here which will have more nutrients in than my body, because I've wasted vital minerals and vitamins to try and assimilate the grass, and it's passed through my body. So it's counterproductive. So the edibility test is looking at something, hopefully you can recognise it, the shape of it, the colour of it, where it's growing, and then feel it. Is it hairy? Is it prickly? Pick it, crush it, express the juice and sniff it. It might be garlic, ginger, a familiar smell. You say, I recognise it. You're still not sure, rub it on the lower lip. And the lips are very sensitive, and wait 5 minutes. If there's any burning, stinging sensation, discard it. There's no problems, put it in here. What we got here is an absorption gland. And what happens, just that small piece, no bigger than say there, I leave it for 5 minutes again. Any discomfort, stinging, burning, soapy flavours, something not quite right, spit out that specimen and say, right, I'm not touching it. Make sure your specimen is clean in the first place. You don't want to pick something where a cow's been or a human's been, you know what I mean? So a bit of common sense. Okay, if there's no other effect again, chew up the same specimen, swallow it, wait 5 hours. Now it seems very long and drawn out, but at least you won't poison yourself. And this is plants only, okay? I've got to stress plants only. Always get your mate to do it, if possible, okay? So you borrow your mate's sock, get it to do this. In the army it's dead easy, because the sergeant says to the corporal, eat it. He turns to the lance corporal, eat it. He turns to the private, eat it. So the more rank you got, it does have its privileges, Talking about mates, if I'm walking down the road and I get attacked by a dog, I tell my mate, run for it, and I stand still. He gets ripped to pieces, yeah? And likewise, if I go down the road, there's a bunch of yobs, I say, stand still, I'll run for it. He gets better. And this is for the fellas, really. If you ever share a hotel room with a bloke that snores, before you go to sleep, kiss him full on the lips. Tongue's everything. He's not going to sleep a wink, is he? And if he kisses you back, you're not going to sleep a wink. 2 hours ago, won't be checked. Okay, so food, plants. We also use plants for medicine. All your drugs are derived from plants. Some are synthetic, but the majority still come from plants, And so if we know this, the more knowledge we got, obviously the better I can deal with any situation at all. I just got to mention one, it's my favourite. Prisoners, when they was locked up, because of their conditions and their diet, they got worms. Big intestinal worms. So what little nourishment they was eating, the worms would take on all the nourishment. And we have a saying, you mustn't keep pets in a survival situation, okay? And what they'd done, they was that desperate, they used to drink petrol. Now imagine that, you got your airway and your stomach, and if you get a gagging, instead of going in your stomach, it goes in your lungs. You've got a serious problem, especially if you're a smoker, okay? And so we don't say that if you're in a tight situation, you've got worms, and you only ever try this once, okay? Are you all familiar with maiden fern? You know, common fern? Okay. Pick a generous handful of that, boil it in water, reduce it till it's a brown, evil smelling liquid, and that is a violent purgative. And by violent, I mean violent. Don't think you drink it, go out to camp, you won't have time. So what you do, you tell your mate, I'm going over there, okay, I'll be back in 5, or come and find me. Go out and clear a big area all the way around you. Take everything off below the waist and hang it on the tree. Okay, I don't demonstrate this. And then take the solution, and it's so potent, it induces vomiting, and also it hits the gut, opens the bowels, and these parasites, the worm, they let go and they're flushed out of the body. Yeah. What I wanted to do was take away all the evil taste and smell and put it in bottles and play tricks on people. It'd be great, you know. But it's a one-off, okay. But plants are very useful with medicine. You're all familiar with willow, contains salicin, you know, so the more knowledge you got, like I say, you can handle any situation. And it's all out there. You know, you can take from nature and supplement what meagre rations you got. Okay, above plants then come fungi. Now with fungi, it's positive recognition. If you're not sure, you leave them. Or slip them to your mother-in-law or your mate, okay? But they're so potent. And Amanita phalloides, are you familiar with it? The death cap? It accounts for 90% of all fatalities. It's a buff colour, the top. It's got traces of white, but it's got the stem with a white ring around it and a vulva, like a bulb at the bottom. And them three things, white gills, vulva and a ring, okay, be very, very wary. Now, the phalloides poison is such that nothing happens after ingestion for 18 hours. And it tastes sweet, so especially children, oh, they taste sweet. Where most plants are bitter and you spit them out anyway. But this, it's false, it smells of raw potatoes, so you think, oh, familiar smell. But the potato is a member of the Solanum family, which is deadly nightshade. So you're on a loser there. So 18 hours, you can imagine, violent headaches, vomiting, going to delirium, and 90% of all cases are fatal. And I'm not going to mention that word again, because we're all survivors now, yeah? We got the will to live. You still got the will? Yeah. I'll keep on going for a bit longer then. Okay, so you mustn't underestimate the power of fungi. The last case I read about was a family in Scotland, and he was a real experienced guy for fungi, and he collected what he thought was chanterelles. In fact, it was Cultinarius. Did you read the case at all? And the whole family, 4 of them. They ate it, it destroys your liver, and although they got expert medical attention, they all died. So, fungi, if you're not sure, leave them. Okay. Tree fungi, that's anything grown above your waist. There is no poisonous tree fungi. Some are excessively bitter, full of tannin from the tree. Some are so hard, it's just like eating a tree. But there's some very useful ones. Jew's ear, oyster, all these different ones I'm sure you're familiar with. So look around you, anything above your waist. As long as you cook it, you won't poison yourself, okay? But fungi, be very, very careful. Okay, going on to insects. You might say there's not a lot of meat on an ant, but there's millions of them. And in every country you find termites. The termites, they build these big nests, which is, they chew up vegetation, secrete it with saliva, and they build that nest. So it's excellent to burn. You put it on the fire and it smoulders, and it will burn for hours, giving off a thick black smoke that keeps every flying insect away. If you put it above where you want to fish, as the insects and the eggs drop in the water, you're ground baiting the area, attracting all the fish, then you can start hooking them. Okay, so insects play a real important part. If you sink the nest under water, all the eggs and the larvae float to the top, skim them off, and you've got all this protein. Plants, fungi are just your carbohydrates. For long-term survival, you need protein, and insects are the easiest source of protein. Yeah. The common worm. How many of you have eaten worms? Enjoy them? Okay. A worm is 75% of the highest protein you can get. Proteins are judged by the amount of amino acids they contain. The body must have 8, and the rest it can make up from food. The worm contains them 8 essential amino acids. Whereas in plant protein, the best soya has only got 6. So the worm, don't overlook it. If you're injured, you're on the floor, you can't go running after rabbits, swift the game. You can dig down, find worms. If you want to eat them raw, you get maximum nutrition. But what I say is, keep them in a box, purge them for 24 hours so all the rubbish comes out of them. Then either plunge them in boiling water, put them by the side of the fire to dry, or leave them in the sun. And it's just like, you see on a summer's day after the rain, the worms come out on the garden path, the sun comes out, they look like bacon line, yeah? That's the best way of eating them, okay? So you're getting all this protein. I know it don't sound palatable, but we run survival courses, we say, yeah, you can do this, do that. On about the third day, people are saying, where's the worms, where's this, you know? If you're hungry enough, you're gonna eat all this, okay? Okay, so insects are very, very important in the nutritional ladder. Above that come fish. We use 3 methods of fishing, and the first one is the night line. You're all familiar with this? We have bootlaces 1 metre long made of parachute cord. And parachute cord's got a really tough outer skin, but it's made up of lots of strands in the middle. So pulling these out, it's a very strong line. And a night line goes in from the bank into the water with hooks for the survival tin at intervals about 1 metre, weighted at the bottom, and any fish coming along, okay, they take the bait and you check it. First light, noon, last light, replace it and get the fish in. So that's a night line. The next one is a gill net. You familiar with a gill net? Again, using the inside of paracord, make a net across the water. Any fish swim into it, get caught by the gills, you've got fish. These are illegal techniques. I never told you this, it's a survival technique, okay? And in the military, we use rapid expanding bait. Are you familiar with this? Familiar with this? It's explosive. It's the best way of fishing. I was telling someone today, a small explosion in the water, it liberates all the oxygen. And the large fish go to the bottom, the small fish come to the top. So it's the only way I like fishing, to tell the truth. Okay. Okay. Coming on to game, it's the hardest to track. Now, all animals are survival trained. They've got acute sense of smell, hearing, eyesight, and you've got to really pit your wits against them. It's a full-time job. So once you've established a survival camp, okay, put out your trap lines. Don't expect success straight away. If you're lucky enough something to bait the trap with, great, but after time you're not. So what we teach for trapping is a small snare made out of brass wire. The animal goes in, ties up around its neck, you've got a strangle. To make that more efficient, if I bend down the sapling, a simple mechanism, a stick in the ground, this held down like this, the snare, the animal goes in now, not only have you got a strangle, it flicks up in the air, you got it with a tangle, okay? In the event of a big rock balanced on a mechanism, the animal takes the bait, it falls on him, you've got a mangle, and in the event of a fish net, you've got a tangle, okay? So mangle, dangle, tangle, strangle. This is the mechanisms for catching game. Okay, you've got the animal. What's the most nutritious part of the animal? Keep the eyes in, they see you through the week. It's the liver, okay, liver. And if you can eat the liver raw, you've got to get maximum nutrition. Now, by cooking some things, you do destroy vitamin content. But in many, especially roots, eating the roots, unless you cook them, can be toxic, or it don't release the sugars and the starches in it, so we can get nourishment. Get me? So what we try to do is, with all our meats in that, don't matter if it's gone off, we can handle that as long as we boil it thoroughly. And what we do, we boil it, bring it off the boil, then we start adding, okay, our fungi, if we got it, and plants. Now plants are rich in vitamin C. Now vitamin C is not water soluble, so if I boil it, I destroy the vitamin content. So I let the water come off the boil, then I seep all my plants in, like nettles, things like this, and that way I get maximum nutrition. Does that make sense? Okay, so the liver. Now imagine you put all your traps out, and you go and check them, and you've got a 400-pound gorilla trapped by his arm. He's going to be pretty upset. What are you going to do? What to do? Run. You're starving hungry. If you sat there and watched him, he'd outlast you by years. If you throw a rock, he'll throw back a boulder. What are you going to do? I gave you the solution. Use your mate. Yeah. Say, go on, son. You can do it. Okay. Always use your mate. Be very wary of any animal that's trapped. Squirrels, they're fierce. They might be small, but they're absolutely fierce. And so be careful. If you're going to handle game, make sure it is dead before you want to pick it up, etc. Okay. Like I say, get your mate to do it if you can't. Okay, you still with me then? You still comfy? Okay, I will carry on. I'm exhausted. This is the hardest I've worked all year. Well, 10 years.